Hey everyone, this is Jamey. I've been shipping out a ton of games to you all over the last couple days, and so I wanted to take a little break to actually show you how to teach Euphoria, since many of you will probably be reading the rules and teaching it over the next couple days or couple weeks. This video is not meant to replace the rules by any means. This is going to be a very brief overview, but I'm going to give you a few tips for teaching Euphoria. The first tip is that I want you to use the black and white side of the board. The other side is really colorful and it can be kind of distracting for a new player in particular. The other thing I would suggest is that you play a few rounds of a mini, like a sample game, as I'm about to do for you here, using 2 players. The board is set up right now for 2 players. You can see that because there are only 2 spaces available on this territory where you can place your authority tokens, which are kind of the victory points in this game. You'll also notice that I focused the camera on this one area of the board. This is the Wastelander area. Just like every area of the board, it has 1 artifact market, 2 construction sites, 1 territory for points, 1 commodity area, and 1 tunnel. All of the areas have something very close to this, and so I would recommend just focusing on this one area, because if you try to teach someone with the whole board, it can be kind of overwhelming to have all that stuff all at once. So I would recommend zeroing in on one specific area, and the Wastelanders are a good place to start. So in Euphoria, you want to start, usually when I teach a game, I try to tell the people how to win. And so in Euphoria, each player has 10 of these authority tokens. These are points. These are the way that you exert your authority over the Dystopia. And the idea of the game is to be the first player to get rid of all 10 of these stars. As I go over this overview, I'll show you the 4 different ways that you can get rid of those stars. And by get rid of, I don't mean throw away, I mean placing them on the board or placing them in certain specific areas. You're kind of getting them, you're using them. Also in Euphoria, you have workers. Workers are represented by dice, and the numbers on the dice represent those workers' knowledge. At the beginning of the game, each player will get 4 random recruit cards. This is what a recruit card looks like. They're going to pick 2 to discard, and they'll select 1 that will start face up and 1 that will start face down. So the face-up recruit is their active recruit, and it will show that player's allegiance at the beginning of the game. So this player has a sub-Terran. Can you read that? Let's see. Well, he's blue. This is a sub-Terran player. And the other player we have over here is a Wastelander. That is important because there are ways to kind of increase your faction's power over the course of the game. But any player who has, so if the Sub-Terran group, their faction gets stronger, any player with a Sub-Terran recruit showing gets the benefits of those strengthened powers. Each player will also get a key card, but on the back side it's a little bit more than a key card. Each player has an ethical dilemma. Let's see if you can read that. Well, basically, every ethical dilemma is the same. They all give you the option of doing a good thing for your workers or a bad thing for your workers, thematically, and they all let you either draw 2 recruits to keep 1 or to place 1 authority token on the board. That's one of the ways that you can get rid of your authority tokens. In Euphoria, and this is represented on this card and on the board, whenever there is a cost, it's represented by a square. Usually with a gray background. So in this case, the cost to use this card is either this specific artifact card or any 2 artifact cards. You can also see those symbols. Let's see, where can you see it? You can see it on the tunnel here. So this is the cost to use the tunnel. This is 1 food in a gray square. And the benefit is that you either gain a clay or a card. I'm jumping ahead a little bit. Let me show you real quick a few sample turns. This is the better way to teach it, I think. So at the beginning of the game, And whenever you take workers off the board, you roll them. So these two workers are rolled, these were rolled. You have a 3 and a 6 and a 5 and a 1. The player with the highest knowledge goes first, so green will go first, and they will place a 3 on this commodity area. Now, commodity areas in the game have this big box, and that means that any number of workers from any number of players can go in that box. There's no limit. The calculation here is that when you put a worker here, right away you add up the total knowledge of all workers in that area, and you look at the corresponding chart to see what you get out of it. So right now, if I place a worker here, the total knowledge of all workers on the farm is 3. 3 falls into the range of 1 and 4. There is no cost here. There's only a benefit. Benefits are in the white circles. And so when I place a worker there, I gain a food, and I gain a Wastelander allegiance. Now what this is, I was talking about the recruits at the beginning of the game and how they have allegiances to different factions. When a player puts a worker here and gains that allegiance, it's not actually the player gaining the allegiance, it's the entire board. It's anyone who has that type of recruit gains that allegiance. And that translates mechanically onto this chart, this allegiance track. So whenever any player places a worker on the commodity area here and falls into that range, they'll gain 1 Wastelander allegiance point, and this little token will move forward 1 space. Nothing happens there. But as it moves forward, there will be benefits that will happen, and they're cumulative. So there's one benefit here, then there's a new benefit that happens here, but this benefit down here continues, and then other benefits happen as you move along the track. If this token gets to the end of the track, any player who has Wastelander Recruit gets to place one of their authority tokens on it. So that's the second way that you can get rid of your authority token. Okay, so on your turn, you're either placing a worker on the board or you're removing workers from the board. So green's turn was to place their 1 worker on the board. They're done their turn. Now it's purple's turn. Purple places their 5 on the farm as well. Now remember, I'm only showing you this part of the board. You can really place them anywhere on the board, but I'm going to focus on this area. When you place the 5 there, you add up the total knowledge. 5 plus 3 is 8. And so that falls into this range. And so purple also gains a food, because they're on the farm, they're picking oranges. And they lose a knowledge. In Euphoria, you want your workers to be dumb and happy. You don't want them to realize that they're in a dystopia. And so losing knowledge is a good thing. When you lose a knowledge, I'll take you over here to the knowledge chart. This is the knowledge chart. You start the game at 3. When you lose a knowledge, you just move your token down here to represent fewer knowledge. I'll show you a little bit more about what that means in a minute. Purple placed a worker, so they're done their turn. Now green gets to go. Now green has a food now. And so there is a cost down here on this tunnel where green can put a worker here and they can gain, or they pay a food, that's the cost, and they gain either a clay, one of these clay bricks, or an artifact card. We're going to have green take a clay token, and they pay their food. When that happens, you take this little miner meeple, which starts on start, and the miner meeple moves down 1 space. Usually he'll be upright, but I wanted to show you what he looks like. So, he's moving down this tunnel. The further and further that miner meeple moves down the tunnel, the closer he's going to get to this little symbol right here. And it's important that this arrow is orange, just in case you're colorblind. But it makes sense for this area of the board. So when the miner meeple reaches this point, any player who has a hidden Wastelander recruit gets to reveal that recruit and then start using that recruit's power from then on. So I mentioned at the beginning of the game that you start with an active recruit and a face-down hidden recruit. So if this recruit card were a Wastelander and the miner reached the bottom of, or reached this level on the tunnel, then you would get to flip that recruit and use it from then on. If the miner gets all the way to the end, it exposes this new action space that isn't present at the beginning of the game. It's orange to represent wastelanders, and the thing that you get by placing a worker here is 3 energy. So any player with an active wastelander recruit can place a worker here and get 3 energy right away. Now you'll notice that there's a little dotted line and an arrow in this space, and same on this space. There's a dotted line and an arrow. What that means is that even though there is a worker here, any other player can still go on that space. So say it's Purple's turn now. Purple wants to go to the tunnel too. What Purple needs to do to go there is bump Green's worker off. That arrow means that a bump is allowed, and Purple gets to pay the cost and get the benefit. And Green gets the benefit of getting their worker back for free. They don't have to pay anything, they don't have to use the turn to get that worker back. And whenever you take your workers off the board, you roll them. So Green would roll their worker right away. So Purple also goes there. Let's have Purple pay a food and take an artifact card. So there's a deck of these artifact cards. These are things that are kind of hidden under the ground that you're digging up. And they're at various places on the board. They will associate with a cost. For example, there's a cost of 3 artifact cards up here. There are 6 different artifact cards. They don't really mean anything other than you're trying to match up pairs, which I'll show you in a second. But that's what an artifact card looks like. Let's say Purple got that card. So the Green player got their worker bumped back. So Green can now use this worker, and this wouldn't normally happen, but let's say Green already had two clay. So Green might take their worker and put it here on this construction site. So they put the worker there, and they pay the clay. And you'll notice that this is a solid gray square. It's not dotted like this one. What that means is that this worker can't be bumped. He's there until he doesn't want to be there anymore. And he paid a clay to be there. He's on a construction site. He's trying to build this market tile. And in a 2-player game, only 2 of these spaces, any 2 of these 4 spaces, need to be filled up for a market to be built. So that's what Green did on their turn. Now Purple has no other workers on the side of the board to use. So Purple needs to use their turn to get their workers off the board. So, like I said, on a turn you're either placing a worker or you're retrieving a worker. And let's have Purple retrieve their workers. I'm going to try to roll doubles here because I want to show you what happens when we roll doubles. So say Purple rolls doubles. Okay. So whenever you roll your workers, the only thing that you do right away is that you check your knowledge. So Purple rolled 2 1s. So that's 2. And Purple will add it to their knowledge on this chart. So Purple has 2 knowledge based on their workers and 2 knowledge here. That's a total of 4. If that knowledge is greater than or equal to 16 when you do that knowledge check, which happens when you roll workers off the board, or roll workers and take them off the board. If it's equal to or greater than 16, then you lose one of your workers. One of your workers is too smart and they run away. Now that's rarely going to happen when you have 2 workers, but in the game you can add up to a total of 4, or 2 more workers for a total of 4. That happens right down here on the worker activation tank. You can put a worker here to pay 3 energy and gain a new worker, or you can do it over here. You can do it with water. And so the idea in the game is that you kind of have to keep an eye on your knowledge over here on the knowledge chart, or gaining a worker might end up resulting in you just losing a worker again. Now on that note, when Purple return their workers from the board, you can return as many workers as you want. Purple chose to return 2 of them. And when they did that, they need to decide, here's the retrieve any all workers key. So you either get to pay a food or a bliss to gain 2 morale, or you cannot pay anything and you can lose 1 morale. So when purple retrieved their workers from the board, they had to say, okay, I'm going to pay a food or a bliss to gain morale, or I'm not going to pay anything. In this case, purple had no resources to use, so purple is going to retrieve workers for free. When they retrieve their workers, they lose 1 morale. Now morale is up here. Morale is your worker happiness. When you lose morale, you would go off the chart. So when you're retrieving workers for free, even if you're at 1 morale, you can still do that. That's a common question in the game, even though you're not, because you're not actually paying 1. It's just you're losing 1 and you can't go any lower than 1 there. So the purple worker, or the purple player, would stay at 1 for losing that morale. Morale represents your hand size. So remember that the purple player chose to draw an artifact card. The artifact cards are what remain in your hand. So right now, purple player's morale is 1, and they have 1 card in hand, which is fine. Now, if purple player ended up drawing another artifact card, and their morale was still at 1, they would still get to draw the card, but then they would have to discard 1 to take it down to 1, to take their hand size down to 1. Alright, so purple's turn was retrieving their workers. Now it's green's turn. Green has a worker on a construction site, and once you put a worker there, you don't ever really want to take it back off the construction site, because for this market to be built, you need to have at least 2 workers here for a 2 or 3 player game. So green is just going to choose to retrieve this 1 worker. They also don't have any food or bliss to pay, so they're just going to roll that worker. And remember, when they roll, they do a knowledge check. Green has 3 knowledge on the knowledge chart over here. And when you do the knowledge check, you're only looking at the workers that are off the board. So you add that 3 to this 2, and you have a total of 5, which is definitely safe. All right, now purple. Purple did something special here. Purple rolled doubles. It doesn't necessarily matter when you roll those doubles, but it's just at the beginning of your turn, if you look at your available workers and you have doubles from previous rolls, you get to take 2 turns in a row using those workers. So purple could, they could place another worker here to gain a food, and then a Wastelander allegiance point down here on the track. And they could use, let's see what else they could do. They could put another, let's say they just put another worker there and they get another food and they get another space on the allegiance track. Now that's important because when the first worker was placed there, the allegiance track down here moved up to the first bonus level. So this means whenever a player with a Wastelander recruit visits the farm, they get an extra food. So you represent that by this little token here. You take that little token and you put it up here. Now the only players eligible for that bonus are those with revealed or activated Wastelander recruits like this one, which is actually the green player. So the green player is going to benefit from what the purple player just did. So the purple player, let's say they just do that again. They're really helping the green player, and that finishes the purple player's turn. They got to take 2 turns in a row, basically. Let's see. Okay, so back to the green player. The green player, they were trying to build this market. So the green player places their 2 here, and they pay the cost in that square. They pay a clay. And, okay, so the first thing that happens when this market is about to be built, you slide it over, and you bump these workers off the board. So right away, green or any other players who were there, they get to roll their workers. Well, they rolled 2 5s, doubles. The second thing that happens is that you flip the market, and any player that had at least 1 worker on that construction site, which in this case was only the green worker, they get to place 1 authority token on the market. So that's the third way that you can get rid of your authority stars. Now we have this new market available for players to visit. Any player can visit this market. The trick is any player that didn't help build this market, any player that basically doesn't have an authority star on it, is now subject to an ongoing penalty. So the purple player may not use their recruit's special abilities. Now that's rough because recruits play a big role in the game. And I'll show you in a second how the purple player can get out of that penalty. The other thing I want to show you about this market, now that it's built, you can see that it has an action space. So players can now place workers here to pay this cost. That's 1 gold and 4 food. And they gain 1 Wastelander allegiance point on the allegiance track. And they gain 1 authority star. The authority star corresponds with this territory up here. So say later in the game if purple goes there and purple pays 4 food and 1 gold, they would get to place one of their purple stars on an open space up here on the territory. And later on in the game they could do it again. Say they put another worker there. They pay 4 more food, another gold, Wastelander, they get another point. And they can put their other authority token here. No one else can place their authority tokens in that territory anymore now that it's full. Now, the tough part about this penalty is that purple might want to get out of this penalty that they're subject to because they didn't help build this market. So, if at any time the purple player wants to get out of the penalty, they can visit the nearby artifact market. There are 4 different artifact markets on the board. They're represented by these hexagons. So if purple goes here, the cost is any 3 artifact cards. So any 3 of these artifact cards. Or they can get around that a little bit by playing a pair of artifact cards. So in this case, they have a pair in their hand, and so purple could pay this pair of artifact cards. They discard it, and they gain 1 Wastelander allegiance point because they're still in the Wastelands, and they gain 1 authority token. They get to place 1 authority star. That authority star can either go on a nearby constructed market that doesn't have their star, so they can put it here to finally get out of that penalty, or if there were an open space up in the nearby territory, they could place it over there. In this case, it's not, so the purple would have to place their star here. I'm looking at the clock here. Somehow I've gone to 23 minutes for a quick overview. But that does describe pretty much the entire game right there. That is how you play Euphoria. I'm trying to think if there's anything I missed here, but I don't think there is. Hopefully this was useful. It's a little longer than I intended it. Normally when you're teaching it, you can do it like I just did it, or you can kind of start playing, because in the early game in Euphoria you're going to take so many turns over the course of the game that if you don't really have a great direction early in the game, that's okay. But I would recommend when you're trying to teach someone how to play and they're looking for something to do early in the game, tell them to look at their recruit card and try to do the thing on the recruit card. That will kind of give them some short-term goals to pay attention to while they're trying to find their footing in the game. Alright, I think that's it. Thank you so much, and I hope you all get your games this week. Thanks.